Presented by Prize Picks. Get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 and use the promo code WELCOME to Light Years. A holiday weekend edition of Light Years. Andy, hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Hope everyone listening had a nice few days off.
You know the feeling when you just know that you ate too much, but you don't care. I've reached that. It's day 4 of eating too much, and I'm just like, I don't care anymore. We're gonna keep it going to Christmas, Sam. We got a whole month of December, dude. We're just gonna let it ride. I feel like this is not what we would have said 10 years ago, but what do you want? You just gonna let it ride, or
you're
gonna run today?
Not me, buddy. I've been in 2-a-days the entire break. I've already started my New Year's resolution. No stuffing, no fatty foods, just lean turkey and a piece of lettuce. No,
wow. Wow. That actually sounds disgusting. Better body spec results for you though. No, not for me.
I'm due for another scan, and nothing motivates you like shame and embarrassment. I don't want those results to be worse than they were last time. So, I'm locked in. You know who's not locked in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad we didn't record after the game. We're trying to go live after pretty much every game this season. There'll be some exceptions, and I feel like Saturday during Thanksgiving weekend, with that many players out against a Pelicans team with all their main guys except for Zion out, warranted it, especially since we got a special guest coming on later today. But they did win. Win's a win. They do need on some level, they just need to start stacking wins because they've given away a certain amount of games they shouldn't. But I mean, my overarching take on that game, and I know you're going to be in agreement, and I think anyone who has working eyeballs in agreement, is good Lord, the offense. Like, how hard is it to score the ball? Is there a less offensively gifted team than the Warriors without Steph Curry?
I know you're asking that rhetorically, but I'm going to look at around the league and I'm just going to read you the worst teams in the league. The New Orleans Pelicans, do they have a worse offense? They might, probably. The Clippers, they have a better offense. So no. The Washington Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets, do they have a better offense? Because I think the Pacers definitely have a better offense than the Warriors without Steph. So 3 teams, I think, the Nets, the Wizards, and the Pelicans, I think you can argue have a worse offense.
Oh, I don't think the Pelicans do at all. I would like
better. You think they have a better offense? Trey, Zion.
The Pelicans have Jordan Poole, Zion.
Yeah.
I mean, their issue is I don't know if any of those guys see 55 games in a season, mixed in with do they defend, mixed in with cultural issues top to bottom. But offensive talent, they are not lacking. Even like Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen.
Solid. Kind of like
Fears. They're nice. I like Queen too. Queen didn't do too much last night. It was a small ball game. But they're not lacking for offensive skill, I guess is what I would say. They might be lacking the other things you need to win. But
everything else. Everything.
I mean, you watch
bottom three, bro. Bottom 2? Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. Better than that?
They went 5 minutes and 12 seconds without scoring in 2025. I just started laughing. And it was like, everyone watching knows it's like they can't, unless Jimmy decides to put his head down to the rim and kind of like really assert himself, which he did when they needed him to.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the non-Jimmy, non-Steph minutes. Nobody can get into the lane, pass it around in circles, take a bullshit 3 because that's the only shot you can get. Like, it was bad. And this is against a very bad Pelicans team who cannot defend. Like, Bryce McGowan's, Sadiq Bey, it was.
I know you like Misi because I like him. He's like pretty solid. He's pretty good, like young guy. But
nice find. Yeah,
truly embarrassing. It wins a win. 11-10. Warriors are 11-10. Warriors are 11-10. 8.5 game backs of the Oklahoma City Thunder and a game back of the 6th seed. So that's the optimism piece. But I think we knew it was coming. So it's like, we're not surprised. You and I aren't sitting here like, oh my God, the Warriors, they can't score on offense. As I know, we knew that it was going to be this difficult, but it just looks
let me flip the script on you a little bit. Okay.
All right.
I still think there is a 50-win team here. They won 20. They went 23-8 to close last year post Jimmy trade. 23-8 is like a 60-win pace. Now, no one's going to say they're that good. But what has changed from what we saw to close last year to now? Because look, it's not like they were good offensively without Steph last year, even with Jimmy, but they were able to play more competent basketball than what we're seeing on a consistent basis right now.
What has changed? So I think the schedule changed. I think the Warriors wanted to come into the season playing 100%, 110%, like how they ended last season. But the schedule changed to that. They just had a bunch of tough games. And I think they had a couple ton of back-to-backs. I mean, we've kind of talked about it. 5 back-to-backs and I think the closest one was 3 for any other team in the NBA. So I think that's part of it, man. Like that stretch got them to 10-10. And then I also think that the lack of progression from 2 guys, Pods and Moody, because those guys were really good in that 23-8 stretch, really, really good. So I think that's number 2, and then number 3, I think the chemistry stuff, man. Like I think the vibes just aren't there. So I point to the Jimmy and Buddy Hield, I think, as kind of like the driving force of the good vibes.
Sure.
Last year, every post game was Jimmy and Buddy kind of laughing it up.
It was a party.
It's a party. Right now, I mean, outside of the fact that Buddy's not played well, it's just, I mean, that's part of it, but it's just like, I don't think anyone's smiling. Feels like even last night they won the game by 10. The last part, GP2 went crazy. It was really fun, but I don't think it was like a party. It felt like, okay, it's like a deep breath win. And now we move on to Tuesday where they're going to play in the city. So yeah.
You kind of stole my take, to be honest with you, because, there's this propensity to talk about Kuminga, and like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, I might be retiring from Twitter because it's just grifters left and right. Smart. That's all it is. Yeah. It's just a bunch of grifters trying to, get 20 cents out of Elon. It's getting a little tiresome. It's like you used to be able to have a conversation in some form of good faith, and now it's just the dumbest arguments of all time. Like you can't say anything without someone just assuming that you're, a monster, whatever. Hey, put that aside. Kuminga, because he wasn't involved in that stretch, he's still an awkward fit. He's had some good games. He's had some bad games. He's missed a lot of games. So kind of what we saw the previous 2 years. That's how I would define how he played. Some good, some bad, and a lot of not there, That's kind of been the Kuminga experience. He's not the reason. He may have made some of the lineup combinations not work the way he wanted it to, but like the stretch with him out really illuminated to me just Pods. Pods is really the one to me, more so than Moses Moody, because Moses wasn't really all that consistent offensively during that 23-8 stretch. He played good defense. He was, he'd have his hits 4 threes, goes 4 for 7 for 15 points. And then the next game, it's 1 for 7, 3 points. Like he was kind of doing that in the second half of last year, Pods, post Jimmy trade, 15 points per game, 42% on 6 threes a game. He was their 3rd leading scorer. He was very consistent. He was a 15-5-5 guy. I mean, I think about that Lakers game where he came out and he outdueled Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves looking like a all NBA guy right now. Pods looking like a all 9th man in the rotation guy right now. So I mean, that's kind of, it seems to me coming into this season, and this is probably foolish, they thought Al Horford could provide them a little more veteran stability. They're going to get Melton back, which could be awesome. We know he can help if he's healthy. And they really banked on what they saw from Pods, being a real year 3 leap. Because that was the justification for not going out and getting like a Malik Monk type. One of these a ball handler, a scoring guard off the bench. The belief that, hey, we really liked how Pods closed the year. Even if he doesn't get better than he was in the second half, this is good enough to play ball handler next to Jimmy, second unit with Jimmy, Pods, Buddy, those guys, like, we can survive. We can be good. And it did work last year. Last year, they had like a plus 12 net differential with those lineup combinations. A big part of why they won. And that just hasn't happened. And so I actually thought last night was somewhat positive for Pods, but like, as we talk about between now and the trade deadline, and he may get traded, in my opinion, they need to know by January whether they're going to extend him or not. We don't need to go through another, well, we'll see. We're not, we don't need to go through another Kuminga situation with Pods.
Oh, we will.
Either be like, this is our guy and we like him and we think we can lock him in at a number that we like we did with Moses Moody, and he'll get more than Moody, but it's like, it's like, okay, we feel comfortable giving him 4 years, 75. We feel comfortable giving him whatever the number is, right? Or make a decision where you're like, this guy's going to want 25, 30. We don't think he's that guy. His trade value is highest right now. So let's just move off of him. And even if he looks good for someone else, we do it, Anyway.
You brought this up in the offseason. I thought you were going to agree with my third point. I didn't know you were going to agree with the second, but the Pods point. So that's interesting. I'm with you that does feel like if it's the on the court stuff, that does feel like because when you hear the veterans kind of the second, they've done it twice already. One at the Oklahoma City game, and then now again after the last loss, where it's like, man, it does feel like very pointed at Pods, where it's like, man, like some games where he looks really good last night, second half when it's rolling. Like he looks good. I don't know if it's all-star, but he looks good. Makes a couple threes. He makes a pull-up midi.
I don't need him.
The key. Yeah.
I don't need him to be an all-star, buddy. I need him to be an NBA starter caliber guy, whether he starts or doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not even just score, but just be a threat. Be an all-around player. Too many 15 points one game, 2 points the next game. You know what I mean? Too much of that.
Yeah,
I guess you're right. I guess that is just kind of saying he needs to score more consistently.
It's hard. I'm interested to see that today's show is not, at least our segment is not going to be about, kind of where he's going to look at the trade deadline. But I do think it's a stretch here. 3-4 games. I don't know when Steph's going to be back. Maybe just 3 games because they have a big break next week. So maybe Steph just misses a couple games, but he does need to use those games to get the shots up. He needs to get the shots up. And he didn't really do that in the first half. Kind of did that in the second half. Just get them up, man. Just really get those shots up, whether it be the mid-range. I think it's the mid-range, Sam. I keep going back to it. Like this team, you mentioned it earlier, this team just pass around the ball in the perimeter and just shoot a 3. It's like, guys, I know the 15-footer isn't a quote-unquote efficient shot. I get it. I'm with it. I don't like when Kuminga shoots it, but he shoots contested ones, right? Like when you guys are pump faking and
turn around,
and driving,
right? And turn around like you're Kobe, like, nah, man.
But did you say Fitz lost it last night when Kuminga did that?
Yeah.
And I was just like, yo, like that's kind of his first shot. Even I was kind of like, well, he's kind of got to get into a rhythm. Like let him shoot that shot. But guys like Moody, guys like Pods, they're running you off the line. They know you want to shoot a 3. Take a step in and shoot the mid-range jump shot. Like you're an NBA player. Those shots should go because God forbid you guys drive to the hole. That's not happening because they're not going to be able to finish at the hole. So shoot the 15-footer. So I just want to see more of it.
10-footer. Yeah, get in the short mid-range. Like they're gonna give you that shot. They're gonna dare you. Like, can you hit the elbow jumper? Can you hit the Chris Paul elbow jumper? Remember he used to talk about wanting to take those, and he took a couple last night and he made a couple last night. Yep. And guess what? It opened up his game. I'm looking at the box score right now. To your point, first half 0 for 4, 2 points. Second half 5 for 9, 3 for 6 from 3, 13 points. But what was more interesting was 4 assists in the second half. Once he hit a couple shots, he started getting a little more aggressive. I think he's a better passer than a scorer, but you got to be able to hit a shot to at least keep the defense honest to open up the pass, And to me, we got 6 weeks till the trade season really begins, right? He's got another 15, 20 games, probably 20 games here. I need to see this get more aggressive, or I need the team to start considering different options at that spot. I really do. And Draymond said it, and you're saying it, but I want to play Draymond's audio real quick here.
Some big plays down the stretch. He's had a kind of rocky start to the season. What was he sort of doing in the second half to get that rhythm?
He was aggressive. We always talk to him about just being aggressive. It's when you're timid. eventually make the mistakes. He was extremely aggressive that second half. And even when he wasn't scoring, it created for other guys because of the aggressiveness that he was playing with. So he played a really good floor game for him.
It's true. And I think that's also what drove the veterans insane. Like there's this thought that like he's so high IQ and like, oh, he's such a smart player, but he's also a young player. And what I saw through the first 20 games, the guy was in his head a lot of the game. Not playing free, overthinking, oh, should I shoot the shot or should I pass it? In some ways it's a Steve Kerr staple with young players. But
I actually was gonna bring that up because I do think part of why he doesn't shoot, like want to take the not crazy risky, but like the inefficient-ish shots is probably because Steve is kind of like, yo, just kick the ball, right? If it's not a good shot, go kick the ball. But it's like, I mean, it's like how many years have we talked about it? It's like, Steve, you kick the ball to what? Tell you right now, Guy Santos isn't doing anything with it. Real Richard, we love him, but he's not doing anything with it. Like none of these guys are doing anything. Quentin Post keeps trying to dribble from the 3-point line, and he gets picked every single time. It's like, why? Why do you think that? Like that's not his game. Like guys, somebody's gotta take those bad looks, and it's probably got to be Pods. He's the best ball.
And it might,
and
it might not be his game. Like let's be honest, he might just be this guy where some games it looks like he can do it, and other games you're like, you're not that guy. But I need you to feel pretty confident with your decision on that by the trade deadline, because if you don't think he's that guy who can be the secondary playmaker, secondary ball handler, that better be on the shopping list at the deadline. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been opposed to them prioritizing that. Like I just think they have bigger needs. I know you wanted them to prioritize that. I'm not saying you're wrong. Honestly, through the first 20 games, how many of those games do they win if they have a Malik Monk? Probably a couple more. They're probably 13-9 instead of 11-10, right? These are things. And I was in favor of kind of like sitting on the bigger swing, see if you can get a true two-way wing, a true like lineup closer, that sort of thing. I think it's a little more nuanced than that at this point. Like, one, they need to do something. But two, it's like, we need to know if Pods can actually be that secondary playmaker to play with Jimmy and second units on a consistent basis or not, because we don't need to go through another 60 games of what we saw the first 20. If you make a decision at the trade deadline, we tried it for half a season and he's just not that guy. It's not his game and we're going to move in a different direction. I can live with that decision, They
are having those same conversations about Kuminga. I know this show mostly is about Pods, but Kuminga kind of like the same thing. I mean, we're asking the same thing. It's like if Kuminga was fully healthy for those games and able to score. I mean, actually, he was healthy for some of those. So it's like he was healthy for the Milwaukee game, Indiana game. But like, what if he was healthy for some of these other games? Like but they were healthy for Sacramento. It's like probably should have won that game. So anyway, we've done this. Which actually leads us to our next segment with a special guest to talk about what those options might be. Before we do that, Light Years Podcast, we are brought to you by Prize Picks, our friends at Prize Picks. Man, they've been supporting us for man, how many seasons? 2, 3 seasons? Yeah, I love these guys, man. Apps easy to use. You guys know how it is. Create a lineup. All you gotta do is pick more or less on a few player stats for your shot to win. You guys get $50 in lineups when you play $5. Use our promo code Light Years. Good thing about these guys, they offer stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. We're recording this Sunday football. I mean, you can go with
before the Niner game, and I'm telling you who I'm not stacking with that weather forecast I'm seeing in Cleveland. I'm staying away.
Yeah,
staying away from Niners players. That's just my feeling right now.
I mean, there's one Niners player that might touch the ball 35 times. Now, whether he stays healthy through the 35 times or he touches the ball is another question. But, I always go with our guy CMC with all stacks on Prize Picks. So, look, download the app today. Use the code Light Years. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Light Years to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. We got our other friend here at Cash App. Cash App, the holiday is all about finding the right gift. This time of year, not every deal is actually what it seems. Scammers get more creative to trick people into sharing your payment info through methods like fake shopping sites and giveaways that are always too good to be true. So Cash App's 24/7 fraud monitoring helps detect and alert you for unusual card activity should someone gain access to your card. You can use that Cash App fraud monitoring feature to require a PIN, Face ID, fingerprint, so that people can't get into your account, especially if you lose your phone, right? You're at a club, holiday party, whatever it is, when you're going out here during the holidays. Stay one step ahead of scams this season. Keep your money secure with Cash App. Get yourself some peace of mind. Download Cash App. For a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. Just download Cash App. Use our referral code SECURE10 in your profile. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right back into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Again, that's a referral code SECURE10. SECURE10. All right.
Let's get to it. All right. Let's get to our special guest here. A one, Mr. Brett Siegel from Clutch Points. Brett, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Sam and Andy. I've been better, been under the weather about the last week. I got whatever has been going around the NBA lately, but we're pushing through.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you pushing through and coming on here. I think I'm catching whatever went around my son's school last week. So, it's that time of year. We're all
not stopping the rumor mill though. No, nothing. The flu, COVID, doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't stop the
show goes on.
Rumor. Not for the Warriors, that's for sure.
Yeah, you had some great reporting, kind of Black Friday state of all these players we've heard may or may not be moved in January. Before we get to that, I kind of just wanted your opinion on the Warriors right now. So we're through 21 games, 11-10. What are your personal impressions of this team so far? Obviously not the start they were hoping to get off to, but how do you feel about them right now?
Well, I think that obviously they faced the toughest schedule out of anybody so far with all the back-to-backs and as many games in as many days. I know Steve Kerr has talked about that multiple times. You've dealt with injuries where Jonathan Kuminga missed a chunk of time. Steph Curry now out for a handful of games. So you haven't had your full rotation for this long stretch that you've gone through. So to be 11-10, I think that Warriors fans will be a little concerned, but it's a long season. And obviously if you are dealing with all these back-to-backs and this tough schedule now, down the line, it's going to get a lot easier and you're going to have a lot more rest heading into the playoffs. So there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel when you look at it from that perspective. But obviously there's some concerns about what this team ultimately looks like. You've had Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green calling out the team publicly. There seems to be a lack of joy. And that's a word that is very familiar with Jimmy Butler. That's what he said last year before he was traded from the Miami Heat, that he lost his joy to play basketball. That's not necessarily the case here with the Warriors. It's not like that he wants out and that everything is falling apart. It's just they're still trying to figure out their identity and figure out who they are outside of Steph Curry. And I feel like that has been the question for this organization over the last 2-3 years. It's why they went out and got Jimmy Butler. It's why they went out, re-signed Jonathan Kuminga to have him as a potential trade asset heading into this trade deadline. So you can figure out not only what your future is going to look like, but what pieces you can put around Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond right now to win a championship. So it's a little bit of good and bad for the Warriors to start this season, but ultimately they're still in a good spot. They're still in a position where when at full strength and heading into that later part of the season, they're going to be able to contend for home court advantage in the playoffs.
It's interesting. Yeah, I think good spot is not what Warriors fans would say, Brett. But I mean, today it was reported that Seth Curry, is going to be signed. DeAnthony Melton, I saw you reported on him back in a couple weeks. Hey, if it's one thing the Warriors need, they need a couple more guards. You know what I'm saying? So these guys are going to be. So I guess talk to me about those two kind of. I'm going to call them pickups. But additions. How close are they? And I mean, I don't know. Is Seth going to play tomorrow, or I guess Tuesday, or what do we got here? So what's it look like for
So
those two guys?
yeah, the latest I heard on Seth before today's news that he was signing is that he was ready to go whenever they wanted him, and it was just a matter of A, the cap number that they wanted him to be on, and B, when they felt that they needed him to come into this roster. And I thought that it was going to be after they made a potential trade, whether that was the end of December, whether that was in January when Kuminga became available, just because of money purposes. But I think signing him now signals that they're going to really lean on Seth Curry a little bit off the bench in certain scenarios to get more shooting, because that has obviously been a problem with Buddy Hield disappearing at times, Brandon Podziemski disappearing at times from the perimeter. So you bring in Seth Curry as a certified bucket from the perimeter, one of the best three-point shooters in the league, and you'll be able to kind of plug and play him whenever you want, whether that's 6, 7, 8 minutes, but just to give yourself a jolt of three-point shooting off the bench. And then obviously DeAnthony Melton coming back. I've heard that he looks fantastic. I've heard that he looks exactly like how he did before he suffered that injury last year. He's going to be a great 3-and-D defender for them, and that's just more depth for them to kind of play around with. So who does that mean loses minutes? Will Brandon Podziemski play less? Will Buddy Hield play less? Will Gary Payton II fall out of the rotation, even though he's been playing really well? What about rookie Will Richards? So it's a good, bad problem to have. Like, obviously, like you said, Andy, Warriors fans wouldn't say that they're in a good position right now, but Steve Kerr, he's got a lot of depth to play around with, and he's got a lot of time between now and the end of the season to figure out what his rotations are going to look like. So it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse in disguise.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we didn't discuss it too heavily, but similar to like Pods, I would say Buddy's been the biggest disappointment of the season. We're 21 games in and he's shooting 30% from three. Like, all right, if he's turning the ball over, maybe not defending, it's like, okay, I'm not surprised, but you kind of expect him to hit shots, and that just hasn't happened. So I don't know, maybe Seth takes his minutes at this point. Like, if nothing else,
they need someone to just make a shot. I mean, that's Buddy does get hot though. Like Buddy does get hot. I'm sure he'll have a hot stretch. Like he did.
I mean, he's a great shooter historically. Like you can't change the 2,000 plus threes he's made in the NBA at 40%. But through 20 games, like 30.8% for your shooter off the bench is just not going to cut it. So not another way to put it. All right, let's get to everyone's favorite topic. Jonathan Kuminga here. I'm going to actually read back your words to you.
There's a lot of Warriors, by the way, Brad. I don't know if you're paid to mention the Warriors in your articles by whomever your sources, but that is there's a lot of Warriors in there. They which it kind of tells me like the Warriors are they're shopping. They're talking. That's their thing right now, and has been.
So you said your words, not mine. Since the Warriors signed Kuminga over the summer, many around the league have been anticipating Golden State using his inflated $22.5 million trade exception to go out and make a key adjustment to their roster. Whether or not the Warriors actually trade Kuminga ultimately comes down to how well they are playing in January and how he is performing on the court. Golden State has continued to signal that they won't just be trading him for the sake of doing so, which has been their ideology dating back to last season. Nothing we don't know. The expectation is the Warriors will be evaluating all options on the trade market regarding experienced front court depth and athletic wings. Should Kuminga be traded, the Dubs will do it with the intention of adding size or a player to the wings who could fill the role Wiggins held previously with Golden State. My question for you on this, because this is, some of this is new. A lot of this is kind of stuff that you've said over the last few months. Do you really get the sense this is going to come down to January, or do you think that they are going to be aggressively shopping him no matter how he plays?
It's a little bit of both, but again, going back to the fact of they're not just going to get rid of him to get any contracts back. They want to find value that can immediately contribute to this team's championship run, because they do believe that they can be a championship caliber team in the West. And whether or not people believe that right now, we saw it last season when Steph was healthy in the playoffs. They took down the 2-seed Rockets, and then who knows what would have happened in that Timberwolves series. So Jonathan Kuminga, he's coming back from injury. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits into this rotation over the next 4 to 5 weeks. And this period of time through December and the first week of January is really going to tell the story for A, if he's going to actually be traded, and B, what kind of value he's going to demand out there. Because if he plays really well and the Warriors still feel like that they want to get rid of him and bring in different talent that can be a part of their future and contribute in a different way right now, then they're going to be aggressively shopping him. But right now they're just looking around, they're seeing what's going to be available. And that's the question that everybody's kind of asking around the league right now. No one really knows what's going to be available. We've heard some centers possibly being on the trade block. We've heard some guards possibly being on the trade block. There's plenty of stuff to talk about with all these stars like John Morant, Domantas Sabonis, Anthony Davis, but no one really knows who's until after December. That seems to be the main talking point every single season, that no one really knows who's going to be available until after December, when teams can truly see where they are in the standings. So as it pertains to Jonathan Kuminga, right now through the end of December.
Okay. You mentioned the Pacers. In some ways, it feels like a new name. In other ways, if you think about it, like they'd been interested in acquiring him in the past. I know there was the talks around the 2023 draft where it was potentially something around Kuminga and like the number 7 pick, which ended up being Jarris Walker. Sorry, that obviously never happened, and maybe the Warriors were right to never do that one, or because who knows what was really there. Can you talk about the Pacers a little bit? Clearly, they're in their gap year right now. No Halliburton. They seem thrilled to be losing every game, seeing if they can get, one of these top 5 picks. Are they really looking to trade pieces on their roster at this point? Are they really looking to do that? Because, to me, if the Warriors trade Kuminga, it does have to be a team looking to go in a different direction than him. It's not going to be like you're trading with the Denver Nuggets or someone who's hoping to achieve the same thing you're achieving right now.
So the thing about the Pacers is that since the start of the 24-25 season, they have continued scouting Jonathan Kuminga, and they've continued gathering information about what type of player he could be moving forward and how he would potentially fit in their system. And he's just one of many players that the Pacers have been scouting. The Warriors have scouted multiple players. You mentioned the Nuggets, and Nuggets have scouted players. It's just a common practice around the league. But the Jonathan Kuminga situation with the Pacers is a little interesting because they've been keeping tabs on him through the years. There were those talks last year about the Warriors potentially being interested in Aaron Nesmith. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to trade Kuminga for Nesmith, and that would probably be a Warriors fan's dream, but it's just something that just adds to this pile of the Pacers being interested in Jonathan Kuminga. You mentioned the 2023 draft. That was certainly an opportunity where the Pacers could have traded the pick for Jonathan Kuminga if the Warriors wanted that to happen. So there's a lot to kind of unpack here. Still a lot of basketball yet to be played until the Pacers definitively decide what direction they're going to go. But the signals right now are that they do anticipate Halliburton being fully back for training camp next year and being the leader of their team. They're not going to really shake up their core too much. And if they do, it's just going to be to move one mid-tier contract in order to bring in a top 5, top 6 pick and maybe make a move around the edge in terms of free agency. So if Jonathan Kuminga is to fit into that equation, you're looking at the guys, one of which you mentioned, Jarris Walker, Benedict Mathurin. Walker, I believe, only has 2 years left on his rookie deal. Mathurin's going to be a restricted free agent next summer. So again, probably something that the Warriors don't want to deal with, but maybe there's a possibility for a multi-team trade there. But if they don't want Mathurin to deal with that contract situation, maybe the Pacers want Jonathan Kuminga. They can send other pieces somewhere else, and the Warriors can get something else that they've been looking for from another team. So it's just
I like
That's
the
interesting.
Pacers one. I like the Pacers because I like that one because it makes sense for them. I don't know if Mathurin and Jarris Walker makes sense for the Warriors. I agree with you. Walker feels like a project. Mathurin feels like just like a better version of Kuminga. Like I just don't know if Steve will want him. So the third team makes sense. But if I were the Pacers and you're a small market team, I don't want to pay Mathurin because he's not really in the long-term plans. It's a free swing at Kuminga, right? It's just like I get to evaluate him for the rest of the year. You're a tanking team who gives a shit if we win or lose, and then they still have a year of control. Like, no, regardless of what Sham says, it is not a rip and replace, buddy. Like they get to decide. The team gets to decide whether we get to just, all right, we'll deny this, bye-bye, or we pick it up and they use it as a trade chip next year. There's nothing more than that. They do not need to re-extend them or renegotiate. There's no renegotiation.
And that's the interesting.
Yeah,
that's the interesting topic regarding Kuminga's contract, where they don't necessarily have to rip it up. We've reported that. Shams has reported it, that it seems likely that he'll become a free agent next year, but there's no guarantee of that. If he gets traded to another team, they could want to keep him for that year, or even they could use that option as an inflated trade exception themselves to go out and get what they want. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens through the month of December. That's really going to tell the story, not only for the Warriors of what direction they're heading, but other teams like the Pacers, teams like the New Orleans Pelicans as well, of what direction they're going and what pieces are going to be a part of their future.
Pelicans.
It does seem like the 3 or 4 team trade may be where this lands. And that's always overly complicated. Like you mentioned it, like Sabonis, the Kings clearly are shopping him. You reported the Warriors are not interested. I totally get it, just because the contract number is just too high. It would literally deplete all their wing depth, and then they would have no route to go get wings.
Correct.
But could you see, Sabonis to the Bulls, and then Kuminga and a Bulls contract to Sacramento, and then some Bulls stuff to the Warriors or something like that? Like, that feels plausible, because we know the Kings like Kuminga, and if they could turn Sabonis into Kuminga and something else, maybe that makes sense for them. That's what it seems like to me. It's a lot of moving parts. I don't know if this is the side effect that everyone thought was going to happen with the CBA, but it seems like it is what's happening.
And most of these trades that we're going to see ahead of the trade deadline that involve anybody making like $18, $20 million or more, it's going to be a multi-team trade. That's just the nature of how the NBA works nowadays with the salary cap and with these apron moves, because certain teams are hard capped at the first apron, certain teams are hard capped at the second apron. For example, if the Warriors are to move Kuminga to the Kings, who are hard capped at one of those aprons, who are they going to give up? Is it going to be a DeMar DeRozan trade? Is it going to be a Domantas Sabonis trade? So now you're talking another team or two to get involved. We've heard about DeRozan being on the Clippers' radar, and the Clippers can't really tank right now because they don't own their first-round pick. So do they make a desperation move around that December deadline when a bunch of players become available? Do they go out and get somebody as well as DeMar DeRozan, and then maybe Kuminga in January slides into that Kings slot there? So there's a lot of moving parts for sure. It's definitely interesting to speculate right now, but until we have clarity of that first move really being made, because Kuminga won't be that first trade to be made. He doesn't become trade eligible until the middle of January. So once we see those other trades made, whether it's something like the Warriors did last season with Dennis Schroeder, whether it's something like the Lakers did with Dorian Finney-Smith, that first deal will cause a domino effect, and it will have a lot of different teams thinking different ways.
We have a bunch of questions that I want to kind of rapid fire at you, but before we do that, seems like there's going to be a flurry of moves in the January trade deadline window, even if they're just small moves. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would, yeah.
And it seems like this is the second or third year in a row that it's been gearing up for more action at the trade deadline than in the offseason. Do you have a theory as to why that is? Why this CBA has or do you think it's just one of those random things that's, going forward, it could be the opposite, like summer's the crazy period?
I think it's just that the fact that the aprons itself and the way that all these cap numbers work, it's put teams really on a 2 to 3 year window. And we've heard that with the Warriors. We've heard that with countless teams around the league, how they're looking to win right now, and they're going to reevaluate themselves in 2027. That's why we're seeing a lot of teams not want to take on significant cap space for that year. That they only want these 1 or 2 year contracts remaining, and then they'll figure out what their roster is after that. So that's where the trade deadline can really come in handy, because you can dump a bigger contract to get what you need right now to compete, and then you can reevaluate things when it's much easier to make a trade in the offseason. But as it pertains to this trade deadline, I don't necessarily know if we're going to see as many fireworks as we did last year. Obviously, the AD Luka trade broke everything.
It's hard to top that one.
Yeah, we're not going to see something like that necessarily, but some of these stars that are being named, LaMelo, John Morant, Sabonis, AD, it's just too early to say, yes, they're 100% going to be moved, because we don't know what those teams are going to look like. And also, it's really hard for the other 29 teams around the league to take on a $40 million contract in the middle of the year, because you're talking giving up 3 or 4 guys, and now you have to replace that value while also remaining below your certain cap apron. So that's why it's much easier to make trades in the offseason, but I do understand what you're saying about there being more aggressiveness at the trade deadline. That's 100% true.
The LaMelo one kind of shakes me a little bit. I know you wrote that the Warriors aren't. It's a purely hypothetical situation, and I don't know if Steve is going to love that one, right? A lot of it really comes down to Steve, because he's, as much as he likes to pretend like he doesn't have any power, he probably is the most powerful guy outside of Steph in the organization. So the LaMelo one is interesting, but let's talk about the one that I think all Warriors fans really want to know about. The really, really big obvious one is the New Orleans Pelicans, before some of these questions that Sam has here. But the Pelicans, I think, is the most fascinating. The Warriors played the Pelicans last night. Trey Murphy didn't play. Per sources, Trey Murphy's not leaving the Bay. He's just going to stay here until the trade deadline. So he's just going to chill in the Bay. No, but I think Trey Murphy, Herb Jones are the biggies. Right? I think the Warriors are interested in. What do you know about kind of those guys? And I think the obvious point is the Warriors love them. But beyond that, do the Pelicans actually want to move those guys at any point?
As of right now, the answer is no. But there's plenty of time between now and the trade deadline. So again, it's a waiting game. Once December ends, we'll have clarity on where these teams lie in the standings. Obviously, the Pelicans, they don't own their first round pick. They do have a first round pick, but just not their own this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what direction they go in, because they're not going to be able to add one of those top 5 guys in the draft. And you have Zion Williamson, you got Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray returning from injury. So you got some guys, but a lot of them are kind of viewed as large contracts that you can move to recuperate assets that you gave up in the past. So will Jordan Poole possibly on the move? Not just for the Warriors necessarily. I don't envision him coming back to Golden State, but will he possibly be moved to another team? And does that open the floodgates for the Pelicans to say, you know what, we're just going to sell and we're going to gather as many assets as possible, like the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Washington Wizards have done through the years? And in that case, that's when Trey Murphy or Herb Jones would draw significant interest around the league. And then from the Warriors' perspective, do they even have the assets that other teams may have to up their offer for Trey Murphy or Herb Jones? Because they're going to draw significant interest if they hit the trade market. You're talking possibly 2 first-round picks for a guy like that. And from the Warriors' perspective, is Kuminga maybe another young piece and 2 first-round picks? Do you really want to do that for a player like Herb Jones or Trey Murphy? Maybe the answer is yes, because it puts you in a better position to win right now. But that's the philosophy and the thinking that all these front offices kind of go through over the course of the next 2 months. It's not only thinking about now, but it's thinking about the future and if you're going to be in a good position then.
I keep coming back to it. It's like, I obviously understand why the Warriors want Trey Murphy. His skill set, is tailor-made to play next to Steph and Jimmy as that 3-and-D wing. I just don't understand why the Pelicans would be in a rush to sell him. He's not old. He just signed a 5-year contract that everyone agrees is, an asset positive one, team friendly, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, I just don't see why they're in a hurry on that one. But it does sound nice. It would be nice to get him. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think that he would be the first domino to fall for the Pelicans. They would obviously have to make a decision about Jordan Poole, DeJounte Murray, and Zion Williamson and their futures first before they ultimately went to Trey Murphy or Herb Jones or Jose Alvarado and said, you know what, we're just going to sell house.
Interesting. That team is horribly built. It just is horribly. What is going on?
They got players. It's just they don't necessarily mesh together. That's the problem.
No, that is certainly true. Jordan Poole as your point guard on a team that's like, yeah, Chris Paul would have been solid for that team. Not now, but maybe a couple years ago. But anyway, all right, Sam, you got a
couple people threw this one out there. We know the Dallas Mavericks are likely going to sell or retool in some capacity in January. Are the Mavs interested in Kuminga or a Warriors player? Like, there are a lot of mid-tier rotation pieces on Dallas, front court ones specifically, where you could see a Daniel Gafford, you could see a Najee Marshall, and be like, man, the Warriors could really use a guy like that.
I have not heard anything to suggest that the Mavericks are interested in Kuminga. Moses Moody may be an interesting fit for them. I haven't heard that. I'm just kind of throwing stuff at the wall here of players that the Warriors would potentially be willing to give up, or that the Mavericks would even be interested in. I think that Moses Moody would be a player that would fit their roster and fit their future. I haven't heard anything about Kuminga there. Obviously, Anthony Davis, the Warriors have been interested in him through the years, but that's not really an option financially. You're talking having to give up either Draymond or Jimmy Butler, and that's something that's just not going to happen this year. So whether or not the Mavericks will be interested in Kuminga, I think that's an interesting topic. Obviously, guys like Gafford, Najee Marshall, next offseason, PJ Washington would be an interesting fit for the Warriors, and given their needs in the front court. But it doesn't really seem like that there's anything brewing right now between the Mavericks and Warriors. But hey, you never know. We didn't even think that the Mavericks and Lakers were talking until that trade happened. So you never know.
Yeah, wish they weren't. A bunch of people ask variations of this. It's always a popular topic with the Warriors, who love to play small. Are the Warriors looking at a center? You mentioned Nic Claxton. You've mentioned him in the past as someone the Warriors like. Do you think that acquiring an upgrade at the center position, not just the front court, the center position, is likely?
I think it's so. I'll say it like this in terms of the Kuminga reporting, because if we view that as an inflated trade exception, which we wrote about, you have around $22, $23 million to play with there. if the right center became available and it was the right value where you wouldn't have to relinquish a lot of future assets in terms of draft picks, then yeah, that's something that they would absolutely take into consideration. Obviously, it's not the same feel as it was last year with them being linked to Nikola Vucevic. That's not really something that I believe that this organization is looking at, but it's more looking at the future. Is there a younger center like Nic Claxton who has experience in this league that could do a lot of the things that you are lacking right now at that front court position? Is there a possibility of flipping Jonathan Kuminga and not relinquishing future assets for Nic Claxton? That's a scenario that the Warriors would be interested in. So when we talk about them looking at front court depth, is there a player out there whose value may be down and they can really take a swing on and potentially be a diamond in the rough? So I think that they're prioritizing the athletic wings and the athletic forwards a lot more if they are going to trade Jonathan Kuminga, because that's a big hole they would have on their roster without an Andrew Wiggins type guy, without a Jonathan Kuminga. And if you just trade him for a center, you're still lacking that forward depth on the wing. So that's definitely something that they're going to prioritize over the center position, but they're certainly evaluating all their options and seeing what value presents itself on the trade market.
Sounds like you're implying they're still going to be super protective of trading future picks.
It does seem that way, but again, if you're able to offer just one first-round pick for a guy like Trey Murphy, and you're able to give up Kuminga and maybe a smaller salary, maybe a Trace Jackson Davis type guy who isn't necessarily in your full rotation right now, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be a long-term piece in your future, maybe that's something that they would be able to relinquish a first-round pick for. But as of right now, I haven't heard that they're being super aggressive and offering up all their first-round picks to go all in this year. They're being a little bit more conservative, seeing what presents itself, and they're taking a very patient approach. But don't worry, Warriors fans. This front office is very aggressive. They're willing to do what it takes to make big moves. They did so with Jimmy Butler last year. I fully anticipate them making a move before the trade deadline this year.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I agree with that. I agree with that because after all this, after kind of reading this and hearing from you, Brett, it does feel like the writing is on the wall for Kuminga on this team, because it's like a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, what they need is like, well, Kuminga could just do it, but obviously he's not doing it. That's why they're trying to trade him.
They just
right, like that's like, oh, do they need a wing? They need 3-and-D. It's like, yeah, well, he can do those things. He just he can, won't, injured, doesn't matter.
It's also just the CBA. Like the contract in some ways matters more than the player. And you have a 23-year-old, he still leaves a lot to be desired. Well, if he's 23-year-old, interesting enough prospect at a number that doesn't, hurt the other team. Like it's a try before you buy type of contract.
Try before you buy. That's funny.
Well, and also like you can match different trades. That's the other issue. It's like Brandon Pajemski's been pretty disappointing, but what are you going to get for his $3.5 million?
Right.
You kind of have to, if you want to trade him for something of value, it's going to almost assuredly include Kuminga just so you can get $25 million.
He's the sweetener. He's going to be the sweetener, perhaps, maybe. I mean, I don't even know how so. Maybe. Like,
but it's like, that's kind of, it does feel like that's a bigger driver for these NBA front offices, right? Like they want to get a bunch of players in that 10 to 25 million, but not long-term money, so they can just kind of move pieces around till they find the right ones.
And the perfect example of a roster constructed like that is the Pacers. If they wanted to go out and make a move, they have a ton of those contracts to be able to. I'm not saying that they are, because Pacers are going to keep pretty much everybody on their roster to go back next year and contend for another finals run with Halliburton. But that's the type of roster that these organizations see as being an advantageous one, where they're not tied down long-term. They have their stars locked up and they can move pieces around them as they see fit. So kind of going back to what you were saying, Sam, of teams not wanting to take on those long-term salaries, and they're more looking at the salary than the player. Perfect example of that is Malik Monk. We heard about him being involved in those sign and trade talks with the Kings and Warriors this offseason. Would Malik Monk fit in with the Warriors? Probably. He'd probably be a good bench scorer for them to have, but that contract's just something that they don't want to take on. So that's going to be the story of this trade deadline. What teams are willing to take on long-term contracts and which aren't. And that's going to kind of tell the tale also of what stars potentially be on the move.
Yeah, it's like the Pacers are actually a good example. It's like you got your two max contract guys, and then you have, I don't know, between like 5 to 8 guys making between 8 and 20 million. Some of them making more, some of them making less, but like gives you a lot of optionality, our favorite word around these parts. Before we get you out of here, someone asked a question here, which I'm curious your take on this. Have the young Warriors hit their ceiling? How can so many other teams develop their young talent, but the Warriors seemingly can't develop theirs? I understand the win now approach because of Steph, but you'd think at least one of the youngsters would be further along now. This isn't a reporting thing that's just, opine away.
Yeah. That's a really interesting topic to discuss. Obviously, Will Richards a rookie, and they're very high on him. I think that he's going to be a guy that they really lean on during the second half of the season, try to mold him into that 3-and-D type player that they've been looking for on the wing. Jonathan Kuminga, I think he still has a lot more to give. Whether or not he's hit his ceiling with the Warriors, I think that's a better way to phrase this question. And I think that he has hit his ceiling with the Warriors. I don't think that next to Steph and next to Jimmy and Draymond, that there's much more that he can do. Now, if he goes to a team where he's able to have the ball in his hands and he's able to be one of the top options, we saw it in that Minnesota series, the type of player he can be. And that's much different than who he was with the Warriors over the last few years. So that's a little bit of a twist on if a guy's hit his ceiling with the Warriors. I think that Kuminga has with this team. But obviously there's a lot more that other teams are going to look at potential wise for him. And then the other one, Moses Moody, I think that he still has a lot more to give the Warriors. I think that he's going to grow into that Andrew Wiggins type mold. And I think that we've kind of seen flashes of that during the second half of last season and during the first half of this year so far. Brandon Pajemski, that's another big question. Has he hit his ceiling with the Warriors? Because he's not going to be a guy that's always going to be able to bring the ball up the floor. He's not going to be a go-to option. And so what does he really provide you with? Can he be that Jordan Poole scorer off the bench? Can he be a better guy who takes better shots? Because early on this season, I think that some of his shot selection has been questionable at times, and it's been early in the shot clock and not really looking to be a passer. It's almost like I'm going to get my shot in this moment because I haven't shot in a while. So I think those are little nuances of the game that the Warriors are going to continue to focus on over the next few months. And even after the trade deadline, I think that integrating some of those young guys and expanding their roles or changing it is going to be vital to them in the playoffs.
Yeah. God, the trade deadline can't come soon enough. But it cannot
be
come
here
soon
before we
enough.
know it.
We might have you on like 25 more times if you're not doing your thing. So no, I appreciate it. I think the Warriors, they've been in these talks every trade deadline, and last year was the one that they really struck gold. But the years before, they were in talks every trade deadline for guys, and I think they're finally at the point. I'll say this. I think they're finally at the point where it's like, I know you cannot say that they're going to go all in. I don't think they have a choice. Like they do have to put the picks in. I just, at this point, it's like, what are you really waiting for? I think it's Steph is still good. The players have proven that they're not that good. And you just have to. I mean, then why would you trade for Jimmy? I mean, like, you think Jimmy's going to sit here and wait and sit around and wait for them to be 25 and 25? I think Jimmy might ask for a trade. He might be like, yo, I'm out of here. So I think the momentum, I think, is there. The pieces make sense. Sam mentioned the contracts. Everything makes too much sense. It's so easy to build a package around Kuminga and Buddy. That's $35 million right there. That's $35 million.
It certainly feels that way. It certainly feels like that they're going to not necessarily make an all-in move, because I would classify that as like an Anthony Davis or a Domantas Sabonis, which I don't even think can happen cap-wise. I haven't even dived into that, but
sure,
that would be an all-in move. Like going for Jimmy Butler's an all-in move, and if you made that last season, you're certainly going to make moves to complement that trade that you made. And so Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, you mentioned it, $35 million. Maybe you can fix both your needs of getting a big guy on a smaller contract, whether that's a Daniel Gafford or somebody else. Yeah. And then you're also able to find that athletic wing that you want. That would be the gold mine for the Warriors. And they have about 9-10 weeks to figure that out.
We'll keep pushing through. Brett, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Being so kind. Feel better.
Yes, appreciate it, guys.
Definitely get better. Anything you want to plug on your way out?
Just stay up to date with Clutch Points. Me and my good colleague and friend Tomer Azarli, we're going to be out in Las Vegas covering the NBA Cup in about a week and a half. We're going to be able to talk with plenty of people out there. The G League Showcase, which a lot of GMs and a lot of executives attend, and scouts. They're going to be talking a lot from December 19th to 22nd. So the holiday time, enjoy it with your friends and family, but definitely stay up to date on Clutch Points and all of our reporting of what we have coming out.
All right.
Appreciate you, Brett. Have a great day.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Cool. All right. I got to go, Sam. I got to piss hella bad.